I've actually been the lead of a very large authentic assessment project. I'm based in the Faculty of Science, Engineering and the Built Environment. It also covers IT. So it's a very STEM-orientated faculty. And the faculty has had a very big push on trying to improve students' employability skills. So as we all know, the government's looking for stats, how well are our graduates being employed. So as part of a bigger project, the Authentic Assessment Project kicked off based on some work that I'd already been doing. So obviously we had the aim of developing our students' transferable employability skills, and for me, it was a natural fit for teamwork, because teamwork ensures that students have to practice and develop a massive suite of skills. So, I mean, teamwork is one of our graduate learning outcomes, which I'm sure is part of one of yours as well. So it was one of those easy ones that sort of slotted into authentic assessment. And because I've already been working with FeedbackFruits and teamwork, we ended up finding some really nice segues from that work into authentic assessment. So, as our speaker said this morning, I mean, authentic assessment is like a buzzword, and it was a buzzword at our place as well. So we ended up doing some research and actually asking our academics what they thought authentic assessment actually was, and it was an extraordinary array of responses, and even students thought that authentic assessment was about authentication rather than trying to give them something that was more like the world of work to get them ready for the world of work. So I've got it up on the screen. So what our faculty decided on was the following: so that it requires students to engage with a problem or a task that is contextualised in a realistic environment and assesses knowledge, skills and attitudes required in the workplace. And I've just put like a little snapshot there. This was our model for authentic assessment. So you'll notice there's no exam in there. What we were able to do in our faculty, we were already moving towards this before COVID hit, but COVID basically helped us to eradicate exams. Yeah. We've only got them for if we need accreditation purposes and stuff. So our academics were absolutely rock solid on, I need at least 20% to, test that they've got the discipline knowledge that I wanted them to come away with. But what we were able to do was push our team projects to be the big one. So the replacement for the exam was actually the team project. And to help students get into that, we have a mid check-in. So if it was a 50% overall, for example, we'd get the students to submit like the first part or a summary or their research on whatever that project was. They get a 10% mark, and if you don't give them some marks, they're not going to hand it in. But what we were also able to do with that was get them to start doing self and peer evaluation at the same time. So the first check-in point, the self and peer evaluation using FeedbackFruits, was get to know your team, give them some nice, feedback, and tell us if people are not turning up or not putting in, but there was no marks associated with that. So we taught them how to use self and peer review. And when we use self and peer review, we make them do a comment as well. So they'll give a rating, but they'll also have to provide a comment to say, this is why I gave you this rating. Or even a step further, when we get to third year, we ask them to consider they're writing a comment for their peer who is going to go and have a job interview, and what would you want that peer or the employer to know about this person. So, scaffolding it to a different level by the time they get out. And interesting, I was interested to hear when they were talking about oral defence, we are moving towards that. So in all of our authentic assessments, oral communication is being focused. So whether that's actually just, learning how to present to an audience in first year, by second year, we might actually ask you some tough questions, because as teachers, pretty quickly if a student has got cottoned on to what you were hoping they would cotton on to just by a conversation. But we also know that authentic assessment is actually, the way we've done it, we've made sure that there is a touch point in each year level of every student's course. So that's 3 authentic assessments for the entire course. And so we can actually do the oral component within the classroom reasonably easily at this point, but we don't think it's something that will happen in every unit. It's probably not necessary in every unit, but as long as we've got touch points where we can say it's definitely happening. In IT and architecture and built environment, we found 3 core units that all students had to take, and so that was fun. And so we got those guys on board and said, we're going to put the authentic assessment tasks in yours so that we've covered every student. in our life and environmental sciences, we're quite so lucky, and we've had to like pick and choose multiple ones. And I think all up, we're at 27 units that are authentic assessment that covers off on all students for all year levels in our faculty. All right, so one of the reasons teamwork was such a big one for me, and you probably all figured this one out, that there are so many skills that we can get students to focus on, and you'll notice evaluative judgment's right at the top. So it's one of those things. Deakin has really been instrumental in helping the staff to actually cotton on to what evaluative judgment is, and so we can also develop that using self and peer review, which we do with FeedbackFruits by supplying them with a rubric that's only got 4 levels in it. And I should say the reason we chose 4 levels: well met, met, partially met, not met. So we don't give them HVCs and all the rest of it. We basically say, did you meet the outcome or did you not meet the outcome? Or partially there. We try to keep our rubrics less like that and more like workplace, because when you're in the workplace, you've either met the expectations of your boss, exceeded it, or they're having conversations with you and HR. So that was our justification. So with authentic assessment, we've changed the rubrics, we've changed the types of tasks, and obviously FeedbackFruits has formed a huge part of that. But one of the things that was really exciting this year, and I'll show you through this particular model, so Svetlana, who is a senior lecturer in our School of Engineering, she had this really cool idea of having workshops where the students would like be like this, and they would talk about stuff, and then they'd actually have to get up and justify what they came up with. And so she called them consensus workshops. And so I talked her into the TVL model, and then we used FeedbackFruits. It's got some work that needs to be done to it, but we did trial it, and it's really quite good.
So this was face-to-face on campus?
Yeah, this was but we also did it online. So it was a smaller cohort online, but it was the same deal. And we said, all right, this is the room, you guys all need to self-enroll, and then we'll continue. And so that enabled us to actually do the full TVL. So once they were all in the team, they got to do their IRAT. So how you can move with TVL, I shouldn't assume that. So it's been around for a long time, but the idea is that students will form a team that before they come into their team, so they'll have pre-reading or whatever, then they'll come into their team, and then they have to sit a test, and they have to do it individually, and then that test is basically put to the side, and then they have to do it again as a team to see if they change their answers or whatever. And so that's the IRAT is the individual readiness assurance test, whereas the TRAT is the team version of that. We basically said to students, if you don't do the IRAT, you can't do the TRAT, and these things have got weights. So as you can see, the way we've done it, we did 3 consensus workshops. The first 2 were formative, and we were really worried that students wouldn't turn up because it wasn't weighted, but it was as part of their schedule. It was amazing. I think there might have only been 3 or 4 students who didn't turn up on that day. And what we actually did was walk them through the whole procedure, because they'd never done it before. They were first years. We told them why we were doing it, how we were doing it. And then when they actually got up for the first case study to defend what they were talking about, we gave them feedback straight away. Okay, what we would think you should do is try this. And each person got a little bit of, you might need to speak up a little bit, just slow it down a little bit, a bit more enthusiasm. And it was amazing how much these students took away from it. And then we had almost a full house on the second formative assessment. We went through exactly the same process, but we added one particular component. I'm not sure if you guys do this. We've got a very big push on building our students' awareness of First Nations knowledges and perspectives. We admittedly have been struggling in this space because we're not First Nations, so we're not quite sure how to do this and do it right. So we actually built it into the authentic assessment space so that we knew that we had all these touch points. We went, this is our opportunity to do it. But what was really awesome is the one that we chose. So we actually created a module for this unit and said, all right, as part of Indigenous knowledges, they do a lot of storytelling and a lot of sharing, and they use a strategy called yarning. So we took them through what yarning was, and we did a physical yarning where we had a ball of wool in the middle of every table, and every time a student talked, they had to take the wool and then pass it to whoever was doing it. But what we really loved about it, as a picture, yeah, is that we said to them, like, this is the approach, is everyone has to be respectful, everybody has to listen when one person's talking at a time, you're sitting in a circle, no one's more important than each other, and we want you to basically take it in turns, and if you need to say something, you have to wait until that rule comes back to you. And it was extraordinary what happened in the classroom. The students were really, really engaged. So not only were they talking about, we actually had the topic that they were discussing was wildfire and how Indigenous knowledges and perspectives can actually help current authorities actually deal with wildfires there. So we had, I suppose, an authentic type of case study with Indigenous perspective, and we were using a yarning circle to try and do that. It was amazing. The student actually didn't want to leave, and yeah, so Svetlana, she's absolutely stuck on this stuff now. But it's not something I would do in every workshop. It would be something that I would use as an introduction to help students understand what respectful listening and talking is all about. So what we ended up doing, this is straight from her unit site, you can see that there's a rubric at the top. So that rubric was basically to help the students understand what they were going to be marked on in their consensus workshop. So there was oral presentation, quality of their response, but it was a small rubric, again, 4 level, just to help them know. You can see the water resources and agricultural issues, that was their reading material before they came in. Then they had, when they came into the workshop, they had their IRAC and their TRAC sitting there. Let me show you the outcome of that, because that was kind of cool. This is it here. So what the students would actually do on the bottom side there, I'll break out their names, but the next column is their individual readiness assurance test. And you can see the variance, like some of the students did get full marks, and quite a few of the students didn't. And you can see there's one student that clearly didn't do their homework and didn't know how to respond, but when they came into the TRAC and discussed it, that person came up to the full marks. So straight away the students could see the value in actually coming together as a team to discuss things, that they'll all bring something to the table and improve overall. And what was really cool is that we were able to build it into the D2L as well. So it was a publish this, get it into our grade books, we don't have to think about it anymore. And we had it pre-weighted that the individual mark was, I think it was either, it might have been worth half of what the overall mark was. So you can see at the bottom there, that's the assessment workshop quiz. So that was worth 20% of the whole thing. But the individual mark, that came back to using self and peer review again. So I'm not sure if you use it the same way. This is how we use it. So intra-team self and peer assessment, whatever it is, whatever the product is that the students have, that gets marked by the academic. But then in the background, we get the students to actually self and peer review each other against the rubric we've created. And then we use the GSF scale to help us establish whether or not the students all deserve a T mark, or if they only deserve a partial component of that mark. And again, it all goes straight to our LMS, which is very helpful. But that was something that we developed over, 2 or 3 years with FeedbackFruits. But yeah, but now it's just something that we do as our standard, I guess, for when we do self and peer review.
On the slide before.
Yes. Yeah.
Where, the first row, the individual one.
Yep.
Who's marking that?
FeedbackFruits.
FeedbackFruits is marking.
Oh, I'll show you. So this is what it looks like in FeedbackFruits. So the students will actually just click on the tab, and it will take them to FeedbackFruits automatically. Yep. We've already created the questions, and they're usually a multiple choice.
Yep.
What
can I ask, what is the tool that we put in the questions in?
It's the TBL tool. Sorry.
We've only got 2 of the tools out of the whole street.
Well, we've got access to TBL.
So that's
TBL
is
TBL.
Gotcha.
The actual, like I said, I think there's a little bit of work to be done in the actual tool itself to make it a little more user friendly. But we found workarounds, like I said, with, getting them to self-assign. But what's really cool is in the TBL tool, you basically put in all of your questions, and then you can set it as a timer, or you can release it right on time. So if everyone's in the room, okay, go, you've got 5 minutes to do your IRAC. Then I think the person who finishes that IRAC first automatically gets assigned as the team leader. And then once everyone's done, you press the button again and release the team readiness assurance test. And they get the same questions again, but this time they're allowed to discuss. So the first one is done in silence, and the second one is done as a team. and the team leader is the one who actually decides what the team has decided on, and then they all get that mark.
We have short answer questions in that too.
That's one of the enhancements on its way, yeah, because we wanted exactly that. Multiple choice and true and false were the sort of the main ones that we saw in the last couple of months, but short answer questions are fun anyway. And something else that was really cool, because whenever you do a team task, there's going to be people away for real reasons. You're actually able to use the extension tool within FeedbackFruits to provide an extension here as well. So we were able to get a couple of students over the line by doing this online at another time when they were away from everybody else. And we used, because it is online, we actually had it with our online cohort as well. So they were able to do exactly the same process that we were doing in the classroom. So it was made for a long day because we did the classroom and then we had the evening class. But the discussion was what was important in this part. So even though I'm going to say TBL has a lot of discussion type components, it's FeedbackFruits' use of the technology is to get them to first engage with the material, do their IRAP, do their TRAP, and then you're off and running for your actual TBL. In the old days, they used to do that on cards. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these cards. They used to have scratchies, and they reveal the answers, like really like sense so old-fashioned now, because it wasn't that long ago that they were using them.
Can I ask you a question then again? Sorry, I keep asking.
No, this is the whole point.
It's a TRAP then.
Yes.
And so everybody's collaborating on the table and they come up with the final answer essentially.
Yeah.
And that gets input into FeedbackFruits too.
Yeah.
And then do you want to go back to that other slide?
Sure, I think it was that way.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So that second column now, where everyone's got 75.
Yes. Oh, that's how it's been broken up. Okay. So they've got 25 percentage points for individual and 75, so the 100 was made up by that split.
So that's, I see this.
Yeah.
So all those second columns there, it's all 100%.
Yeah.
Obviously. So what's going on there? Like, so the person who on the left-hand side who's got 12.5, they've now gone up to 75, but when they look at the second column, always be 100. Like, what's going on there? Who's marking that?
Again, it's what FeedbackFruit questions are. So if they get the correct response, it's automatically marked. So the students will know. And what I want to point out, the overall grade, so the student individual readiness assurance test that they didn't do well on, you'll notice that they got 87.5%, whoever else got or whatever.
Sure.
But you can change that percentage. You can weight that any way you want. We kind of kept it soft because they were first years, but you can certainly make that 50-50 or even go 75 and 25 the other way.
So the reason they're all 100% there in that second column is because they all got the right answer.
As a team, they came to consensus, and we think that's the answer.
Yeah.
So it was sort of helping them to see the power of teams as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously there was another rubric which isn't in FeedbackFruits, it's a separate thing again, because when their actual responses to their team-based learning tasks that they were talking about stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're going to do, we thought it was just a bit too much for step one to get our head around, is to actually get the students to do a self-assessment of teamwork skills. And we've used this in a lot of other first-year units where we give them a set of statements about teamwork, and they have to give us their confidence level against those statements. So before they go into the team, they give us their confidence statements, and then after they've done something that's very teamwork based, we get them to do it again, and then they can see if they improved or if they thought they were a bit overconfident at the start. So they don't get marked on that response, but they get marked on the reflection of that response. Yeah. So again, there's that another 10% potentially for a reflection on teamwork skills. So one of the challenges with implementing this sort of thing with unit chairs is that they don't want to give up marks for something that isn't related to their unit. Yeah. And so reflection, if we can get a 10% reflection in there, it'd be like, woohoo, we've done it. But as you'll notice, the TBL and the use of self and peer review, they all work in with the content of the unit. So we're not asking them for marks. We're just saying this is just a helpful way to help you get evidence, basically, that everybody in that team is collaborating or doing what needs to be done. The students enjoyed it as well, so that was my I was going, it's easy to use. And that, so it's intuitive and it worked nice and quickly, and they could see the results instantly, and there was no lag time for anything. I mean, it worked well, so I'm pretty confident that that's the sort of thing will actually get rolled out into our other faculties. So we were the try.
Is this the only area that's working with FeedbackFruits, or there are other projects using FeedbackFruits?
Okay, so C is the lead in this space, but we do have arts and ed, visual. Actually, even health we're using it, but they're not using it to the same degree as what we've done with all the. And that's why I'm thinking, like, now that we've got this under the umbrella of an authentic assessment and everybody's being told you've got no more exams and they're looking for alternatives, that was my next slide. Scale up.